Attention B&Bs, this is a raw video, meaning this video has not been edited, and I am not going to do so for a handful of reasons. I think the main one is I recorded the video, just never did go back and upload it. I wanted this video to come out last week, so it's 6 days late. So since I have my voiceover for what it is, it's already recorded and all of the animation will be red, white, and blue themed. But also, I'm tired of all of this, these pictures and articles and all that I found. I'm just ready to move on to something new and different. So I'm not going to bother. It is what it is. I apologize in all sincerity. Also, I seem to have misspoken quite a few times, so you'll hear quite a few hiccups along the way. I just didn't feel like taking the time to go back and iron all of that stuff out. So with my misspoken words, it being 6 days late, my audio is weak at worst, and then it sounds like at other times I seem to be blowing your eardrums out. So I'm just going to give you what I have. This is the raw, unedited, unfiltered third installment of the book, My Mother's Keeper. Hello, bookers and bookettes. This is a Black Devil. Welcome back to the channel. Visitors, if you happen upon my channel, feel free to join us. We would love to have you here. Hello there, bookers and bookettes. I hope you all enjoyed the 4th of July as I did. Hope you were able to get rested up if you needed it. As for me, I know I enjoyed myself the 1st and 2nd. I went to cookouts both of those days, and then by the time the 4th rolled around, I would have said it was just another day, but that wouldn't be true because the 4th of July is my oldest daughter's birthday. She turned 28 years old on the 4th of July this year, so sometimes I think that date is more important to me than the actual holiday itself. But anyway, back to that now. Guys, I am here with the final installment of the book, My Mother's Keeper by B.D. Hyman. Now remember, B.D. Hyman, or maybe I need to refresh your memory, B.D. Hyman is the only biological daughter, or child, period, for that matter, that Bette Davis had. You know, Bette Davis was legendary stage and screen actress. Now, if you hear any humming, anything in the background, please excuse it. And so now, I guess I need to let you guys know up front. When I went back to compile my notes for this last installment, how about, I guess I accidentally deleted them. I cannot find them anywhere at all. And believe you me, I have looked. Whew. So, and although this last section is only 7 chapters long, they are pretty lengthy chapters. So I am just going to go off the top of my head. Luckily for me, it won't be hard to do because it's more of the same. Just same script, different cast, different day, whatever. I don't know why, but Betty seemed to delight in picking fights with everyone. And if she couldn't get a rise out of her family, then she would go And you know, it was always some sort of commotion with people she worked with. It just was a never-ending thing with her. And let me see. One of the cruelest things she could ever do, to me anyway, is BD recalls that at age 8, and her brother Michael was only 3. Whenever Betty wanted the kids to do something and they wouldn't or didn't want to, or they didn't show the same enthusiasm for it as Betty did, she would just go and like put an empty pill bottle outside in the outside of her bedroom, and then she'd go back in her bedroom, shut and lock her door. And the BD most of the time was the ones that found it. You know, the bottle would be empty. She always, you know, just kept looming over their heads with, you know, well, if y'all don't love me, or you all don't respect me, or you don't care about me, so I'll just check out, if you know what I mean. And I know that had to be terribly frightening for an 8-year-old over and over. Now, she did say one time she pulled an episode like that, but she was real mean this time to Michael. It was something, and 8-year-old BD was like, Mother, he's only 3 or whatever. But anyway, Michael started crying, so BD took him to his room and told him to stay there until she came to get him. So she goes back down the hall to Betty's room, and Betty at that time had put that empty pill bottle back out there in the hall, and BD was crying and knocking on the door, and Betty wouldn't say anything. So this time, BD went and sat on the stairs, because now she's used to her mom doing this. But, you know, in an 8-year-old mind, you probably just think, okay, this might be a gimmick, but you never know, this could, she might succeed this time. I don't know if that's what she thought, but that's probably what I would have thought. And the reason I say that is because instead of her going on back to her bedroom, she sat on the stairs and she cried herself to sleep. She woke up, Betty standing over with her hands on her hips, saying, well, the next time you'll do different, won't you? Or something along those lines. And I just thought, that is mean. It's really mean. Not only because now it looks like the kids, or Betty feels like she could keep them in line as long as she threatened to check out. Now, I don't know how long it took her, how old rather I should say. I don't know how old they were when she stopped doing that. All right, now, another thing that I think the second cruelest thing she did was she deliberately kept picking fights with BD's minor children. You know, she had fought for her grandson to be in some movie. He was her co-star or something, her oldest grandson. And she was, you know, all that you see on TV, all nice and polite and charming and always loving on her grandson, but behind closed doors, she treated him worse than dirt. Now, all of this I'm saying, you all keep in mind, is according to BD, allegedly. This is how Betty was off screen. It got so to the point to where, I think BD, their oldest son, Ashley, his name is Ashley. And I think at this time, Ashley was only like 9. she would do things like promise to take him shopping because he loved clothes. And she would do things like she would go and tell BD, oh, we're going to have the best time, and I'm going to take Ashley, and he's going to come back with the finest of everything. Well, when they got there, every time it was time to go shopping, Betty always had a reason why they couldn't go. And so eventually he told BD, and when BD asked Betty about it, Betty started all of that. Christ, is that all y'all think about? Jesus, effing clothes and stuff. And now this is Black Devil saying this part. I just feel like, Betty, if that was how you really felt, you shouldn't have promised a kid of all people that you would, and then always found a reason not to go. Well, it got so bad that she stopped letting him call home. He couldn't call his parents unless Betty sat right there and she could hear everything he says. Well, it got so bad one day, somehow, Betty and this lady that worked with her, or for her, I think she was her publicist or whatever, publicist. Anyway, they both happened not to be home. And so he went in the kitchen and called BD, but before he could hang up, they came in. Now, Catherine used to be good about maybe going behind Betty's back, and she would let him, call her. Or Betty got mad one time about something about his laundry. He didn't get his laundry down to be washed in time. And then he ended up with some stuff missing. And when BD asked Betty about it, Betty didn't take too kindly. And so that's another reason why she stopped letting him use the phone. Well, when he got caught red-handed with the phone in his hand, Betty she was like, no, if I don't call you and talk to you, you won't hear from your son. And then eventually he finally made it home. And they just kind of knew from then on that they couldn't trust. Well, I think he was afraid of her. Ashley was by the time he got home. He just knew. If he wasn't afraid of her, I think he just knew that he didn't want to be in her presence by himself again. Well, I don't know, the next year, somewhere along in there, BD and her husband, her children's father, Jeremy, it was coming up on their anniversary or something. And Betty had moved into a new house, and so she was hosting some grand party. Well, somewhere in the middle of all of that, she said that she would love for the grandkids to come and stay with her, spend the night with her, so that their parents could go out and enjoy their anniversary. And she said BD said when she was in there getting dressed, she said her youngest son his name is Justin. I think he is 5 at this point. And he didn't have a problem with BD going anywhere. He knew his problem was with having to stay with Betty overnight. Because come find out, she would do sneaky stuff to Justin. He was real sick one time. And so, a lot of times when you're sick, you just can't eat. So he had a fever, and BD was carrying him around pretty much everywhere he had to go. And then the next day, the fever was not as high as the day before, but he still she asked him if he wanted to try something, and he asked for some peaches. So BD opened the can and gave him some and told him to just eat all he could and don't worry about the rest. And he was in there eating. But then she had to leave out of the kitchen for something. And all of a sudden, he's screaming and crying and going on, and Betty goes back in there. Betty is in there, told him he better eat every one of those peaches in that bowl or he was really gonna get it. You know, stuff like this just goes on and on. So the night of the anniversary, when they spent the night, I can't remember what Justin did, but it ticked Betty off royally, which apparently it didn't take much. I just cannot believe she could be this drastically different. And when I say different, because the interviews that I watched, her interviews, she's just so joyful and playful, and she could be funny. Yeah. Either she acted her entire life, or she just, I guess, knew how to turn on the charm when need be. But anyway, when they spent the night, the next morning, when BB and Jeremy came to pick the kids up, Betty was in the foyer with them. She already had their bags and stuff by the door. She said, well, you said you wanted to get them first thing in the morning. Here they are. So they left. When they got home, Ashley, the oldest son, told BD and Jeremy, his parents, that I can't remember what it was. I think Ashley, no, what's the little one? Justin. Yeah, that's right. Justin was kind of whimpering and crying and saying he just wanted to go home. So Ashley went and let him, he held him and stuff. Betty came. She didn't appreciate that. She didn't appreciate it at all. And when Ashley tried to speak up and say, you know, well, this is my baby brother, and I've always been taught to take care of him. Really? Jesus effing Christ. Why do people use profanity and you know, when referencing or saying anything out of the Bible? That's just crazy to me, but they do. It's holy ass, or for effing Jesus' sake. I just don't like that. Okay, I'm back now. I just had to get that out of my chest. But anyway, so Betty would do all this stuff, get the F out of here and all of that kind of stuff. But Ashley said she bent him over, bent Justin over and spanked him. Okay. Well, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. Because for years now, Betty had been caught reaping havoc with Jeremy. She just did not like Jeremy. Now, later on, we found out she wasn't crazy about her sons, Michael's wife either, but Jeremy always caught the brunt of it. And they seem to say that Betty always let it be known that BD was the only person she ever really loved her entire life long. BD. That's why it hurt Betty so much when BD published this book. And she ended up being disinherited by Betty because she wrote the book. And if I'm not mistaken, her brother, Michael, doesn't speak to her anymore either. So, anyway, let me see. So, yeah, she always raised hell with her family. And then she would pick fights with her actors and actresses. We all know the legendary feud between Joan and Betty. Now, I did see somewhere, like I said earlier in part 1, I believe it was, they by no means were friends, but they weren't staunch enemies either. That was just something that was kind of trumped up to keep that going between those two, because they both in their heydays were starlets of Hollywood. So yes, she used to argue back and forth with Joan, but she argued with it was some actor named Claude Rains. She didn't have anything pleasant to say about any of her co-stars, really and truly. She did not. And then she would insult guests at her home. She even got so far gone that she would even insult guests at BD's home. Whenever BD was hosting anything, she would. And that's just the way it was. But they said that really and truly now, I don't think that there was anything inappropriate between Betty and BD. But I do think that Betty was enmeshed with BD. She just couldn't see life without BD. And that was the source of the tension between them, because if BD couldn't she couldn't drop everything and come to her right then, right there, then, that was a problem. And then if she could drop and come right there to her, that was a problem. But they just always, BD went on, she had a husband and friends and children and a brother and things. Oh, yes. I guess, now, she also had a daughter, Margot. Well, Margot was mentally challenged at this point. She is 19 years old, but she has the mentality of a 6-year-old. And they just talked about how BD just talked about how nice and sweet and polite she was. She said the only thing that was kind of irksome at times is she loved the subject of Indians. Anything that's got to do with Indians. And there's one particular time, Betty didn't really go see Margot that much, but infrequently she would check her out and keep her for a period of time. I think this particular time she had her for like 2 weeks. And when BD got to the house, Betty came to open the door, but Margot was right on her heels, so Betty was already snappish about that. But then when Margot saw Justin, at this time I think Justin was only like 2 or 3, but she was carrying him, and Margot was like, "Oh, he is so cute." Then Betty got mad about that. What's so cute about him? He's just another boy. Jesus, brother, go sit down, Margot. And then Margot just couldn't do anything right, according to BD. So at some point, Betty went back in the kitchen to finish preparing. I think they're supposed to have been having lunch. And BD asked Margot, could she watch Justin? She had to go say something to their mom, and she did. And BD went in there and asked her, why do you insist on being so mean to Margot? And Betty went rattling off. She's just... Now, BD did not say this. This is just me talking now. It's like Betty may as well just said she's as dumb as a sack of hair or a box of rocks or whatever. She really just does not. Margot is not worth the effort. And so that would bother BD. And one of those weeks, Betty was so rough that Margot ended up coming to stay with BD while she was there. And as for Michael, he I forget what kind of lawyer he is, but he was some sort of a lawyer. He started out practicing over in Germany. And when they came back to the States, they just kind of resettled. Everything was pretty much okay. Now, let me see. Who am I missing? I talked about Ashley, Justin, Margot, Joan, other people. Well, in 1987, I think it was, Betty was diagnosed with breast cancer. And oh no, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is why I have notes. Okay, now Betty's alcoholism really set in. It got to the point to where Betty had run everyone off, including BD. But BD would go over sometimes when Betty would let her in. She would go over and the house would be a mess. And there would be empty alcohol bottles and cans everywhere. And whenever BD, would see one, she'd just open it up and pour them. She's like, Mother, you are an alcoholic. And then she led BD to believe that Hollywood they weren't calling her anymore. Well, one of those times BD was there, she got a phone call from Betty's, I think he was her agent, Harold. And Betty was like, you can just tell them to go to hell or whatever she said, and hung the phone up. Well, later on, BD talked to Harold. Now, he was her staunch defender. Betty could do nothing wrong in his eyes. Everything that ever went down was always BD's fault, because Betty always let it be known that she really just loved BD that much. Well, when BD talked to Betty. I'm sorry, this is going to be as is. I'm not going to go back and try to edit. So, it is what it is. I guess this is going to be my example of a raw video. But yeah, later on when BD talked to Harold, she found out that Betty was the one turning down the scripts. She just turned them down one right after the other. And she just kind of soaked in her alcoholism. This went on forever and a day. Well, now, 1987, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she went on, she had the mastectomies. But she ended up having, on July the 3rd, she had a stroke. July the 4th, she had another one. July the 5th, she did not stroke, but something else went on. And then July the 6th, she had her third stroke. July the 7th, she had her final stroke. And one time, her publicist, Catherine, she slipped away, got in the bathroom with something, and called BD. Now, BD had been in and out of the hospital, I think, to see Betty. But Betty was living at this time, I think, like 300 or 400 miles away from Betty. Catherine told BD that Betty, the radiation and chemo they were giving her for the cancer, it made her burn and itch really, really bad. She just itched a lot, and then she could not stand to be touched. Oh my gosh, she just itched. And if you did touch her, then she would scream because it hurt. So, either way it goes, eventually she got cleared up. She left the hospital and she went to France to start working on a movie. And I believe let me see, this book was published in 1985. Betty had not read it. She knew that it was out, but she hadn't read it. So, when she went to work on the movie in France, they really thought, she was back to being her old cantankerous self, just, happy that she survived or whatever. But she ended up passing away in 1989 from complications of the many strokes that she had 2 years prior. And I don't know if the breast cancer had returned or not, but I know that's what she passed from, and she was, let me see here. Yeah, she was either 81 or 82 years old when she passed away. She passed away never really repairing or mending the relationship she had with BD. And then, like I said earlier, I do believe her son Michael stopped talking or having anything to do with BD. Wow. Now, I am so glad to be through with this book. Not because it wasn't good, because it was. It kept me on my toes for the longest. But I have been reading this book off and on for the last 2 years, so I knew I need to go ahead and get this video up and out. Now, you will see some book titles in this video of mine. This is the first and only book I have ever read by BD, but apparently she's gone on. I know that she's a Christian now. She, I can't remember, but she converted over to one of these religions, but she and her husband are. And then I seen somewhere one time, some interview, BD was giving some sort of an interview. She said something about Betty used to practice witchcraft. And I don't think I mentioned in the first part of this book I uploaded, but she lived, you know how real rich people, for whatever reason, they always seem to give their mansions names. Well, Betty named one of hers when BD was just a little girl. I think her parents were still married at this time. She named her mansion Witch Way. WITCH Way. WAY. I'm like, And at the time she said that, well, the time I read it, rather, I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave that one alone. But I thought it was just something in the book, but then, imagine my surprise when I found out, according to BD, that her mom did practice witchcraft. I don't know if BD walked up on her, or how do you... I'm just going to leave that alone. Anyway, this finally completes the book, My Mother's Keeper, by B.D. Hyman, daughter of legendary stage and screen actress Betty Davis, or Ruth Elizabeth Davis. I hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Once again, I just want to wish my oldest daughter, Skylar, a happy belated birthday. And bookers, bookettes, and book lovers alike, remember this: as long as there are books around, there is always something to read. Now, book lovers, one and all, be safe, be careful. Thanks for watching and or listening, and God bless. Oh yeah, I forgot. Please, subscribers, Thanks for being subscribed. Oh, and don't forget to like and share the video. Visitors, if you happen upon the channel, please feel free to join us. We really would love to have you here because we enjoy being together. And if you leave comments, please do so respectfully. And make sure all of your notification bells are on, or your notification bell is on and it's set to all, so that you will know every time I upload a video. Okay, I think that's all I had forgotten to say. All right, guys, I missed you, and until we read again, I'll probably later on this afternoon tonight post the book I plan to read next. In the meantime, enjoy your day or night, book lovers, bookers, and bookettes.